Okay, you are in for a treat today. I have Rachael Maddox on as a guest, and the conversation is so good that I wanted to record an intro because I just want to make sure you guys actually listen because it's so fucking good. We are talking about using ritual and covens in order to uncensor your voice, bring your biggest genius out into the world, and the history of witch burning and witches from the perspective of patriarchy. And if you are someone who wants their business and believes that their voice is outside of the status quo and is trying to create revolution in our current society, then listen in because this is such a good one. And if you want to go deeper with Rachael, you will hear her talk about her program that is open right now, March 2024, if you're listening in real time. It's called Business Witchery, and it is on pre-sale, early bird special, whatever you call it, for $100 off right now, up until March 13th. There is so much juice in here. Enjoy. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Regenerative Business. I'm here with a special guest. I'm not even going to tell you her bio because it's going to come out through this conversation and it's so fucking good. And with today, we're really diving into not just having a successful business, which I mean, all of us want as business owners is to have a level of success as defined by us, as we truly want within ourselves, and to have a certain level of sovereignty. But there's actually a step beyond this. And if you have achieved a certain level of success in your business, you suddenly find out at some points that it can feel a little bit like a cage, the cage of the success that you've built. So with this episode, with special guest Rachael Maddox today, we're actually diving into creating success from almost the outskirts, from really within ourselves, from our true genius and what actual business witchery is. So welcome, Rachael. We're so excited to have you here.
Thanks, Sam.
And I invited Rachael on because if you follow her on Instagram, you know how powerful her voice is and how powerful her work is. And just the idea of business witchery is transformational in and of itself. But I wanted to dive into her story, which we're going to get into later. But the way we're going to enter is through the Oracle of the Witch. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Rachael.
Thanks, Sam. I'm so glad to be here. Yeah, so through a number of different sources, you all have heard the usual, we'll call it patriarchally informed Oracle of the Witch. You have this old hag of a woman with warts on her face and whiskers, popping up everywhere. And she's weathered and she's feared and she's living on the outskirts of town in her own little abode, stirring terrifying potions in a cauldron and, making spells and hexing people. And she's not to be messed with. And also, she's scary. She could curse you if you mess up or if you cross her. And to me, and she's alone. She's isolated. She's out there by herself because no one really wants to get close to her. To me, this is the Oracle of the Witch told through the lens of patriarchy. But if we actually tell the Oracle of the Witch through a feminist lens, this is a woman who is wise, right? She's always old, right? She's wise. She's not wearing any makeup. She doesn't need makeup. I mean, I'm not dissing makeup. I like makeup, but like she's beyond the need to adorn herself to impress or to win approval. She's in communion with the natural world. She's on her own land, owns her own property, has her own home. She's needed. People fear her, but they also need her. They go to her when they need advice, when they need an oracle, when they need a potion, when they need something, a spell or a curse reversed. And through the lens of patriarchy, they always talk about the witch as alone, but it's not true. The witch is with coven, is with kin, is in community. Sometimes, of course, they also talk about the familiar, the cat or whatever as her only companion, but witches can be married, they can have children, they can also be single, and they can be queer, and they can be trans. So to me, there is this myth, this untrue myth that's told about the witch, that she's alone, that she's only feared, that she's outcast, that she's a fraud. And those are the gaslighting lies of the patriarchy that are, rooted in the witch burnings of Europe and the US, and there's also witch burnings still happening today across Africa and in other places, but like rooted in the witch burnings that are honestly a fear of a woman in communion with her power, her sovereign power, and her ability to connect to spirits, to the earth, to other witches, to the land, and to what is true in her soul and her truest genius. So I think that we can reclaim the archetype of the witch and retell the archetype of the witch as someone who has belonging without the need for approval, who has resources and power without the need to hoard, who has, inspiration and genius without the need to exert power over others.
And something you had mentioned before I hit record was this idea of one of the reasons she might be on the outskirts of town is she owns land. She owns her
Yeah.
own home. It's not like she has to be someone's wife or mother in order to have a place in society. And sure, I mean, and bringing it back to in metaphor with our businesses, like those women were successful and happy, or a bunch of versions of that, but it was in the confines of the only way in society to make this work was I had to be someone's wife, I had to be a caregiver, I had to be something, versus being on your own, owning your own land, owning your own profession, being in there, a community outside of society. That is just so beautiful and so amazing as a potential that we can all be creating with in our own businesses.
Well, the really interesting part about it is in Europe, before the witch burnings, there was no land ownership.
Mm.
So people shared, the land was commons, and people
Mm-hmm.
shared land, and the role of the witch was integrated into the community in the sense that, like, yeah, the witch might have been in a place that was more mystical and a little bit on the outskirts, quote unquote, but it wasn't actually about ownership. And it was through the witch burnings, which literally murdered the wisest women and men in the villages, that capitalism took hold, that colonization was like given free rein because there was no wisdom keepers in Europe to like check and balance.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of really interesting history that you can get into. The book Women, Witch Hunts and Witch Burnings is really interesting. In Defense of Witches is another really interesting book. But yeah, it's a super political topic for sure.
Oy. So how does this play in your business? I know that you went on your own deep process around
Yeah.
this, and I'm sure you've been studying this for years and years, but there's this newer evolution of it. How did it start?
Yeah, there's two pieces here. One is with my own journey, which we didn't talk about before, but my own journey around my kind of soul level ancestral trauma of being burned at the stake, which I haven't really talked about anywhere, not like publicly. And then there's also the experience I had of closing the company I was previously running and getting really small and being in the unknown. And then from that place, this being one business witchery and this new body of work being what wanted to birth forth. So is there a direction you'd like for me to start in, or?
I want to start with the current incarnation. What I really am so drawn to with this story is just from being in business for years, just from working with a lot of like very successful business owners, there tends to be this theme of burning.
Yeah.
Of you create a business in this society and you follow the rules of society and you grow a quote unquote successful business and you're praised for it and you get all of these accolades and everyone is looking to you as this mentor, as this example of what's possible, and it fucking sucks. And you hate it, and whether it's pressure, whether you're confined to a message that no longer feels right, or your entire business was created on the wrong message in of itself,
Yeah.
and it needs to be either burned a little bit or like completely killed. And you have this story. Tell
Yeah.
us
Okay.
this story.
All right. So I will, and that's a really good premise to tell it from because there's some interesting pieces that I'm going to highlight. So I've been in the coaching industry for almost 15 years. I like was the youngest person in my coach training way back in the day. It's basically been my only profession. And in 20, I think, I was diagnosed with vaginal melanoma. I had cancer. I went on this big trauma healing journey, rooted in sexual trauma. And through that journey, I found my trauma resolution teacher, and I did this whole big, huge process around, post-traumatic growth, sexual post-traumatic growth, developmental post-traumatic growth. And I had this like awakening, which was nobody was talking about trauma in the coaching industry. This was pre-Me Too. And I was like, trauma and what's happened in our nervous systems is impacting us on so many levels. I'm meant to bring this work forward into this industry. And I wrote my first book, which was called Secret Bad Girl. And that was a sexual trauma memoir and resolution guide. And it did really well. I sold 20,000 copies. I had a 300-person email list. So this book was just like wanting to be out in the world. And then people started asking me if I would be their teacher. And I was like, oh no, like I have a real teacher. She's like 30 years older than me. She's got, so much experience. But, time after time, I was like, actually, I come from a family of teachers. I'm an excellent teacher. Like maybe I should start teaching this. And so I did some beta stuff, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, I birthed a body of work called Rebloom. And that was my second book, 7 Archetypes for Post-Traumatic Growth. And that book and that body of work turned into a company where I was training people in an 18-month certification. And I had over 20 contractors on my team. And as a company, we were grossing over $500,000. I wasn't keeping very much because there were so many people I was paying. And it was like, and that's sort of the point. And so then in 2020, 2021, 2020, the stresses of the collective traumas that we were all going through from COVID to the uprisings were really intense. And as a witch, there were a lot of projections that were coming at me. And I'm somebody who I'm a white woman, I'm a Jewish woman, an anti-Zionist Jew, with, a lot of history of doing interpersonal somatic abolitionism. I've been showing up for that work for decades. And still, I'm of course imperfect and da da da, but there was just so much tension and stress and projections being pointed at me. And I had some soul contracts that I had not burned. And those soul contracts included I because of my privileges, I should be punished. And because of my privileges or because of my peers' privileges, any of them that are not quote unquote doing it right, they should be punished. And because of my privileges, I should martyr myself and self-sacrifice and overgive and take anything that anyone gives me all the way in. Any bullshit, any feedback that's not true, any projections, I should just wear them like like a badge of honor so I can be the good white person. I had not burned that soul contract. And because I hadn't burned that soul contract, I was in some pretty unhealthy dynamics inside my company. And I did not know how to get out of them. But what happened was I was rupturing cysts in my ovaries over and over, month after month. I had to go to the hospital multiple times. And I wanted to get pregnant. I wanted a baby. And on my 35th birthday, it was my 28th birthday that I got diagnosed with cancer, healed that. 35th birthday, I got a call from the doctor saying, this could be cancer. And I said, that's a 7-year cycle. I'm done. And I knew right then I was closing my entire company. And could I have done things differently? Could I have fired 5 people and, told 10 students they had to leave? Yeah, I could have. That would have been really hard to do because there was a culture that was built around punishment. Even though that wasn't said, it was there. Even though nobody would admit it, it was happening. It was happening and it was happening and it was happening. And, there wasn't enough actual resilience and capacity for nuance inside of the collective nervous system of the company and the student body. And that's okay. And I learned a really hard lesson, which is I am in over my head. I am, operating from a wound of guilt and shame, and nothing good will come from this. And the body of work itself is brilliant, and I stand behind it. And there are times when I occasionally come and do little pop-up teachings of that work. And the methodology and the somatic training of it all is brilliant. But I had to close that company. So that was my burning. And I didn't even fully realize the soul contract that I had been holding. I knew the saviorship martyrdom one was in there, but the punished, like the one who's punished and the one who punishes, I just discovered that actually through everything that's been happening in Gaza and, all of these huge things that have been happening for me around that and through doing business witchery and realizing that's the outdated soul contract. I'm no longer here to be punished or to punish, which means that even if I'm an anti-Zionist Jew, I'm also here for abolition, compassion, and humanization for everyone across the spectrum, including Zionists, which is very hard, but I have too many Zionists in my life to throw everyone away. There's a lot there.
Throughout this process of the burning, did you know it was on the other side at all, or was it just complete free fall?
It was a free fall. I had those cysts. I closed my company. 3 months later, I got pregnant. No, 3 months later, they were all gone. 6 months later, I was pregnant. And what I did was I made my business, my industry, what I was offering very intimate. So I just was running, I had 6 one-on-one clients, 4 of which were in a CEO coven together.
Mhm.
And that was wonderful because I loved every single person. I had a lot to give. It was a nice reciprocal income for me. So I was okay financially. I had what I needed. I could still work, but I
Mhm.
did it. I went from having a really big company where I had hundreds of students and 20 something contractors to just literally me, a bookkeeper, an accountant, and that was it.
Do you have any messages for someone who might be in this place? I mean, what was that feeling? Was it this feeling of confinement or was it overwhelm? Like, what was that feeling? And what is the message to people who are in that space?
For me, it was like a feeling of I just needed to break free. I felt imprisoned in my own company. And it was really hard. My best friend was the CFO. I ended up paying out lots of people, lots of money from my own money I didn't have, had to figure out how to come up with. Yeah, the feeling was of being imprisoned and being confined and feeling like I wasn't doing the right work because it was too hard.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in work that is too hard. I
Yeah.
believe when we're living our genius, there is difficulty, but it's exciting.
Mhm.
Every industry, every job has some shit sandwich, of course. But when you're in your genius, you want to eat that shit sandwich. You're like, fuck, fine,
Uh-huh.
get me some ketchup. I'm eating that shit sandwich because I love this job. I believe that.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing that, right? And I also believe that there is somebody else who it's not a shit sandwich for that we can and we need to better learn how to collaborate. But again, if we have some core wounded soul contract running our businesses, it will eventually like come to the surface as extreme conflict, as sickness in your body, as burnout or, extreme stress, as anxiety or depression, as your business just not working, right? So if any of those things are happening, you're probably either running your business from an unconsciously outdated soul contract, or you're not fully living into your genius. And then
Mhm.
the question for that would be why? What's stopping you?
Do you have any other examples of what outdated soul contrasts could be? Are there any common ones, or is it just super individualized?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's pretty individual, but it's also like there's so many that are
There's themes.
common, right? Like I could rattle off some old ones from years of my past. Like I'm not allowed to be the wealthiest person that I know. Yeah, like I'm not allowed to be this happy. I'm not allowed is a good sentence starter for outdated soul contracts. Everyone will hate me if is another one. Like if you hear these kind of sentence starters like I'm not allowed to or everyone will hate me if these sort of energy of absolute and something comes to mind, it's probably running your business. Like I don't have right now, I'm not allowed to. I
Mhm.
literally just don't. I don't
Mhm.
have that in my system in terms of my business. I might have some upper limits around how much money I'm allowed to charge and make. There's some
Yeah.
upper limits around that that are rooted in, just my values. But there also could be some like, that's a place that might burn one day, But for now, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine for now.
It's not like massive. It's not going to make me or anyone else sick.
One that I worked through last year was I'm not allowed to work less than those around me.
Yeah,
And
right.
it started first with like people on my team, and then it like worked through that, and then it was like because I have a very active, passionate husband, and
Right.
like he's always in my field, and like that was actually a harder one because it's
Yeah,
like when you work remote, it's kind of easier to distance, but when there's like someone physically around you, it's like that one's harder for me.
totally. Yeah, those are great examples.
Okay, so now let's jump back to this ancestral trauma of being burned at the stake.
Yeah, I mean, light topic, right?
That's an
It
easy
was,
jump, right?
yeah. No, I mean, and it was also in that I also had these kind of ancestral memories of the Holocaust. And I
Yeah.
don't have people in my direct family, like, immediate mother father family lines that were in the Holocaust, but of course, secondary trauma is so real. And just the collective trauma is so real as people, as Palestinians right now are experiencing and now who are not in Palestine. I was actually writing Rebloom, and one of the 7 archetypes inside of Rebloom is the sacred gardener. And each of the archetypes in Rebloom has a traumatic imprint. There are 2 myths that I kind of tell, right? The allegory of like things gone wrong and the allegory of how things could go well inside of this regenerative Rebloom garden with these 7 archetypes.
Mm.
Anyway, so they each have an imprint and they each have a blueprint. And the imprint of the sacred gardener is colonization and systems that harm, capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy. The blueprint is co-creation. Can we co-create with all of life? But I was writing this chapter and I was writing about whiteness and I was writing about Holocaust trauma and Palestine. I mean, and this was again like 2020. And I just had this bone shattering fear in my body that if I really write these words, if I really write about whiteness in a book that anyone could read, I will be betraying a cultural cult that I benefit from inside of these systems. And I think that that is actually the essence of the witch wound and the path to liberation. What are the things that you're benefiting from culturally, systemically, that you do not believe in, that you are deeply opposed to, that your soul knows is not good for the world and all living things or you, even if you're quote unquote benefiting from them? The wound of the witch is if I speak up, if I speak out, if I stand for justice, if I stand for what I feel to be true, I will be burned at the stake. And that is true. That is historically true. That is not some like, oh, you're so crazy if you're thinking that. No, there's historical implications that would, validate your fear. But the path of liberation for the witch is to coven up, right? You don't have to stand by yourself. That's a fucking myth, right? We talked about this in the beginning. It's to coven up and to tell your coven, this is what I'm scared to say. This is the truth that has me rattling in my bones, but it's true. And then you ask your coven for either celebration, solidarity, or support. Celebration is here's what I need to be able to bring this out into the world in a bigger way, to emanate and overflow. I need y'all to just be like, fuck yes, yes, more. That is so fucking fire. Yes. Celebration, right? Solidarity. You might say, what I need is for y'all to have my back if someone comes for me. I need you in my comments. I need you in my home. I need you here saying, like when that person writes that nasty email to you or whatever, that you're like, no, they've lost their mind. They've lost their humanity. Stand strong. We're here. We're with you. Back up. That's solidarity. Or support. Help me. I'm trying to get my fingers on the essence of what I need to say. And I want to say it with love and conviction. I want to say it with compassion and clarity, clear courage. Am I striking a balance? Am I too far in one place or another? Help me see clearly. Help me get this out. Help me, help me, help me. So we all need solidarity, celebration, and support in order to move from the witch wound who represses and hides in shame and I shouldn't or I couldn't or I'm not allowed, to the liberated witch who is sovereign and a clear stand for what her version or their version of truth and justice are.
Oh my God, this is so good. I see. Do you feel like this is like one of the key pieces to people being afraid of visibility? Like this is
The
the
coven.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. This is my thing. This is a hill I will die on. This is the second ritual inside of Business Witch Rachael. The first one, you figure out what you're censoring. The second one, you do the coven up. The third one, you burn your old soul contract. So if you're hearing is resonating, come do Business Witch Rachael. But up is the thing that people don't talk about. And of course they don't, because no one's teaching us this. What do you
Yeah.
learn in school? You learn, I have to take a test and pass it by myself. We couldn't possibly collaborate on a test.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't learn community. We're in an individualized, hyper competitive society that praises being able to do things on your own. And that is toxic and it is poisonous. And literally, they say isolation is as deadly as cigarettes.
Mhm.
So not only, are you not like getting your voice out there and your message and making money, but like you're not having fun and feeling connected and feeling fulfilled if you don't have a coven. And
Mhm.
so one of the most important things is to know, okay, what is it that I want to put my stake in the ground for, but I'm afraid to? And then you got to make a little boundary shield and say, okay, if I really put my stake in the ground for this thing, like for instance, for me, I have my stake in the ground as an anti-Zionist Jew who's here for abolitionism and humanization of everyone, including Zionists. God, saying that is fucking edgy.
Mm.
I can't stand alone in that sentence.
Yeah.
Literally, I am torn apart. I have Zionists in my family. I have Palestinians in my closest beloved kin. Who can stand in that with me? I had to build a coven around me for that one truth.
Mhm.
Literally, I literally had to coven up around that one thing and say, I need celebration. I need solidarity. I need support grieving all the people who can't hold the nuance of how big our hearts could really be for humanity. And so, what is the truth that you're a stand for that's edgy as fuck for you to claim? And who can hold that truth with you? And also, who can't? Who cannot hold it? Who do you shake in your core thinking they might hear me say this? Oh no. Those people don't get access in the beginning. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean you're cutting them out of your life. But if you have some facet of your soul's truth that is just a little sprout, you need to protect it. You need to
Mhm.
have only nourishment and light and water coming in and healthy soil. And you need to have that little fence around it. Like, no, the squirrels and the deer can't come eat my little seed.
Uh-huh.
And you have to really just differentiate who and what can nourish this and who and what can't. And as that truth grows stronger in you, you'll have more capacity to weather disagreement, criticism, feedback, animosity, whatever, from a mature place. But if you're just that little sprout, trying to bring a big truth out into a big vulnerable truth out into the world, you might do it once and you get one little bit of negative feedback. And what do? You
I
shrivel, you die.
hmm
And so, if you want to actually have capacity to be resilient and to continue to like ride and find the edge of your leadership, you absolutely need coven, and you need different covens for different parts of you. I have lots of covens.
Oh, I love this so much because 2023 published my first book, and it was just such a big business changer for me. And it was the largest shift in visibility for me. And through that process, I was just awakened to the importance of support. I had no conscious awareness of it until then, because you get thousands of people DMing you being like, this, like, I'm one page in and I'm already crying, and like all
Right.
the amazing feedback. And then you get a 1-star review.
Yeah.
And then what do you do? Literally DMing like a good friend who's published books and respect her so much. And she was like, oh, all of me and my other published author friends do not read the 1-star review. Just a complete, and like having people to actually ask those things to and like go
Right.
to in like what feels like such a big crisis
Yes.
is huge. So this just so rings so true to me.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll say about that is like when you're out there, if you're listening and you're like, I've got a business and I feel really timid saying like these edgier things, I think the thing I really want to say is like, it's not your fault that you can't say them yet.
Yeah.
Again, this isn't an individual problem. I guarantee you, if you had, a few rounds of coven support, of just really bringing the vulnerable thing to the right people and asking, which thing do I need? Celebration, solidarity, or support? And you got it a few times, that's a positive feedback loop that can help you feel brave. And
Yeah.
instead, what happens is we feel ashamed that something's wrong with us, and nothing is wrong with you. You just need other people.
I love that so much. So how does ritual play into all of this? And like, can you give us like 101, what is a ritual, and go from there?
Yeah, ritual is an altered state of where more magic is possible because you're consenting to move into the dream time, move
Mm.
out of the real time into the dream time, where things can happen at an exponential pace. And, as somebody who's worked at the realm of the nervous system somatically for, a decade or so, they're not that different. They are different, but they're not totally different. And of course, all the rituals I do have the lens of trauma resolution and the nervous system in them. But yeah, to me, the magic of ritual is the altered state where you're consenting to something more potent happening than would happen with normal consciousness.
And how does it play into this getting your true message out into the world?
Well, like for instance, in Business Witchery, there are 7 rituals, and they again are a very curated arc of an experience. And I'm like I'm just fucking witch. Like I just want it to feel like magic. So you come into the ritual and there's music from the very minute you enter until the minute you leave. And it's all perfectly curated to like build and help create an experience. So I think music is actually a really important part of ritual, can be a really important part of ritual. The way that it plays in is like the other thing I'm really passionate about is fun.
Mm.
They say, I don't know the exact stat on this, but it's like if you're trying to learn something new, if you're having fun while you're trying to learn it, it happens like a bajillion times faster. And rituals are fun. I've like there's one ritual that you can do for free. It's called Cackle, and it's all about meeting your genius witch. And we literally let your genie out of a bottle. It's like fucking fun. And I think that again, those of us who really care about the world, who have big hearts and who are really earnestly like concerned with doing good, I think we take ourselves too fucking seriously. Same with like those of us who are running our own business. I mean, it is serious. It's hard, but we forget that we can have fun. And so to me, the way that I like to do ritual is a combination of like really deep shit, fun, and mischief. Like, is it Like,
What a good word.
yeah. I was trying to write my bio because like I don't have a new bio yet. And I was like, mischief's gotta be in there somewhere.
I love that. I haven't heard that word enough.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm imagining with ritual specifically in the context of banishing these soul contracts. It's something that has to be because I'm like circling around an idea. When I think of ritual, I think of life as a metaphor, and we're intentionally using metaphor to speak with powers outside of ourselves slash our unconscious mind,
Yeah.
and which does fast track or super speed things. And with things like soul contracts, so intangible, right? And like even nervous system stuff, it's like it can feel really intangible to people. It's we're able to actually go to the levels and the depths, or like the further out there that's needed, and access the consciousness that's needed to actually let go of these things or welcome in these things that just feel intangible and impossible.
Well, I think part of also what you're sharing makes me think of myth and mythology, which, we've been weaving through this conversation. And all of these rituals also have an element of myth inside of them. So in our first ritual, it's like we do kind of like a guided visualization into a cave to discover the shadowed facet of your soul's genius. And then, you come out of the cave and you meet your light and your known wisdom, and they duel. They literally, I have them fight with one another, and then I have them make love with one another, right? And then it's like, what is this emergence of your emerging wisdom between your light and your dark, your
Hmm.
shadow self and your known self? Like, can you really discover the answer to that in your head? No, you really can't. Like, and I know because I came up with each of these rituals and then like I sort of thought about, well, what would my answers be, whatever. But it wasn't actually until I watched the recordings, which I've done, watched and done each of the rituals, I'm like, oh my God, what happened in the actual altered state was different than what I thought would happen in my mind. It was
Hmm.
so much more accurate and potent and true. And that's the power of ritual.
So if you've been spinning your wheels and in mental spirals around your business, this might be the answer.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of, somatic alchemy, nervous system work, and ritual. Those are definitely two methods that I'm a big fan of.
Mm, so good. So for people who are interested in business witchery, can you tell us a little bit more about it? And I mean, is the best place to start with Cackle, or do you feel like some people are just ready to jump in?
Hackle's a really fun intro because it's 32 minutes, it's totally free, and you get a taste of, me and my medicine and what I offer. And for Cackle, like it's for you if you geek out on really living into your genius. For me, I'm like, I don't want to be doing anything that doesn't feel like fun. Like, I don't want any part of my work to feel like drudgery. And with Cackle, you're literally going to meet your genius witch. You're going to let her out of a bottle, and she's going to fucking, she, they, he is are going to put 3 dares on you. They're going to dare you to do 3 things.
That's terrifies me.
And then I have this idea that I want to do like a live version of this where anyone who's done all 3 dares can come back to the next class. But like the 3 dares could be anything in your life. They don't have to be related to your business. But then once you've implemented them, then you ask that genie witch again to come and to give you 3 dares around your business. But first, just get in touch with your genius. Let it saturate your soul. Let it come and bubble up from your being, and that in and of itself is going to give you this life force infusion that will impact your business positively. So yeah, start there. But in terms of business witchery, this is a program. It's 2 months, 7 rituals. There's also, council calls with me where people can bring their personal questions. But the pitch really is to uncensor your wildest wisdom in your work in our world. And so if you're feeling like maybe a little bored by your messaging or your own business, if you want an injection of passion and coherence and flow state and communion with your genius, and in particular, if you're kind of living inside of some shoulds, I should, or I can't, or I'm not allowed to. And you want to feel more free. I would say that's the biggest thing. If you want to feel more free inside of your business and you want to impact the world positively all the while, then yeah, we have got 7 rituals and they're really, really fucking fun.
One thing so with the page, I mean, I recommend everyone to just go read the sales page because your writing is so epic on there. But one thing that really captured me with it was this, because I consider myself a writer. And so like writing's always easy. So like uncensoring myself doesn't actually like it's just like I write, I chat, I'm
Yeah.
solid. But like from reading your story, it was this you get to do it differently and also it gets to be successful in this different incarnation. So with like it felt like this like deepening of this like word of uncensoring of even if you are a good writer and you can just like sit down and write a bunch of stuff like but what if you got to write things that you were like actually excited to write about at the beginning of the morning when you get up in the morning versus like oh I have to spend the day scheduling my social media posts for the next month
Yes.
following these formulas.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like the thing for me, I'm also, obviously a writer, and it's not the uncensored part isn't so much about like, are you writing or not writing? It's more like, how free do you feel inside of everything that you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Or are there parts of your truth, of your edge, of your turn on, of your arrows? Are there parts of the truest, juiciest you that get left, in a closet somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
This is really about coming out. Every
Mm-hmm.
part of you, the most alive parts of you. The fifth ritual is called Marry Your Soul's Aliveness. That was the ritual that people gave the most feedback on in terms of its potency. Like, fuck, just what does it look like for you to be so fucking alive in your business, where none of it is about just going through the motions, but all of it is about living your genius every day, truly, in a way that's just fucking fun.
And what's so cool is because like I feel like that would trigger a lot of people being like, well, do I really want that? Do I really want to uncensor myself? But like, okay, if you trust the process and you trust the idea of this covening up, then
Well, the
you will be
same,
supported.
yes. And the same thing people think about, fuck, do I really want to marry my soul's aliveness in my life? Because guess what? What will end? And I know, because this whole phrase, marrying your soul's aliveness, came when I broke up with this person right before I met my husband. And he was so, oh my God, I loved him so much. He was like a heart soulmate, beautiful man, but he just wasn't the right fit. And you have to let go of really good to get to really fucking good. And people don't want to let go. But that's the thing with Rebloom. I had a $500,000 company. I had all of this cred, all of this respect. People knew me as the one to go to. If you don't want to do somatic experiencing, if you want the witchy, mythical trauma resolution training, unless you go to my teacher, Bridget, alchemical alignment, you should go to Rachel. I was like, established. I let all of it go so that I could feel more alive and free and happy. And you're allowed to do that.
think we can stop there.
I think so.
I feel like that was a mic drop moment. Oh, well, thank you so much, Rachel. This was so fun. I learned so much. So I know everyone here did too. Everyone go do Cackle. Go do Cackle and like circle back on
Yeah.
Instagram to both of us. I want to hear what your genie dares you to do. Please
Yes.
share. I'm
I need to
dying
hear
to
what
know.
yours, I can
I
tell
will.
you,
I will. I'm going to do Cackle probably tonight.
you should. It's so fun. It's so easy. You're going to have the best time.
I'm sure I will. And then you have the potion party on Monday for people if you're listening in real time.
If you're listening in real time, my best friend and who's a Palestinian American and I, Dima, and I are hosting a potion party for Palestine. And this is like folk intuitive herbalism. And like all things, right? With the genie in the bottle, oh, the genie comes out and I'm supposed to ask it to grant my wishes. No, bitch. That genie's gonna give you some dares. Like, you don't know what you need. The genie knows. Same thing with the potion. You're not like putting a spell on the potion. The potion's gonna put a spell on you about what, and it's coming from this mythic realm, right? Like, What does it look like? If you've been watching the unfoldings of what's been happening in Gaza and you're fucking heartbroken and you're asking, how can I show up more for this movement, for this moment? How can I be the history I wish to see in the future? And you don't know what the answer is, then you can come and we're going to literally be supported by earth and plant spirits that are in your kitchen. I promise you don't have to go out and get anything. So you're going to make a potion. The potion will put a spell on you and you will be guided and supported into your next most empowered move in service to a ceasefire and free Palestine. If that calls to you, if you're aligned to that, please come. It's going to be so much fun. I'd love to be with you.
And if you can't make it, that's Monday, March 11th. And if you can't make it, it's something you can buy anytime called Potion Power too.
Yeah, how to make the potion is, it's a little evergreen course, Potion Power, but the potion party itself is not recorded. That's one of my offerings that I just keep magical, mystical, in person and real time.
Any final messages for all of us?
You're not alone. In that core rattling, shaky part that wants to come out is not alone. Just let yourself be found. Go find the ones to coven up with and be brave. The world needs you.